In the first quarter of 2026, Meta made 56 billion US dollars in revenue. Let me say that again so that it registers with you. $6 billion in the first 3 months of 2026. Trust me, that is not a company in trouble. That is a company swimming in profits. That is one of the most profitable quarters in the history of the internet. That's record revenue, record profit margins. Their stock was up. Their investors were extremely happy. Mark Zuckerberg himself was on top of the world. And on May 20th, 2026, he fired 8,000 people. Now, I want you to let that sink in. A huge profit followed by firings. That's not right, is it? That's not how things work, right? Here is what most people in the workforce believe. If their company is doing well, they're probably safe. In fact, they should be getting huge bonuses by the end of this year. They believe that if they are performing, they are extremely safe. They believe that the cuts fall on struggling companies, the ones that are missing their numbers, the ones that are running out of cash. Meta just obliterated that belief. And if it can happen there, I need you to understand it can happen at your organization too. And it may be happening right now in ways you are really not aware or you're really not seeing it yet. This episode is about teaching you how to see it, how to know if your company could be doing the same as what Meta just did to their employees. Welcome to Future Ready with Bryce Sparrows. I'm Bryce. Let's get into it. I've spent 28 years in corporate HR at some of the largest global tech companies in the world. I have been in the rooms where these decisions get made before the announcements even go out. I personally delivered termination letters to 2,700 people, and the moment that changed me forever was not one I expected. I was sitting across from a man who had given years of his life to the organization. Excellent performance reviews. His team loved him. His division was profitable. He was not on anyone's watch list. And I was handing him a letter because a decision had been made at the head office 2 months earlier that had nothing to do with his performance and everything to do with a cost reduction model run in some CFO's office he had never been invited to. That morning, I realized something. And that took me years to actually fully to articulate. The decision about whether you keep your job is not always made by the people who know your work. In fact, it is often made by people who have never met you, who are looking at a spreadsheet, running a calculation about whether your function can be delivered at a lower cost by a different means. 20 years ago, that different meant outsourcing or offshore labor. Today, it is AI. The scale is different, the speed is different, but the CFO calculations are still the same. Today, I'm going to teach you how to read the signals that show up before the announcement. I'm going to give you a new way of thinking about your safety at work that has nothing to do with your performance reviews and hand you a 3-question test that would tell you more about your actual job security than anything your manager has said to you in the last 12 months. Part 1, the profitable company trap. So let me dismantle the biggest false belief in the professional workforce that is happening right now. If my company is doing well, my job is probably safe. That belief made complete sense in every economic cycle before this one. Layoffs were a symptom of failure. Struggling company equals job risk. A successful company equals relative safety. That correlation is broken. And Meta is the clearest proof we have. Here is the actual math Mark Zuckerberg ran. Meta made 56 billion in 1 quarter. They have invested 145 billion in AI infrastructure this year alone. Cutting 8,000 employees saves them roughly 7 to 8 billion US dollars per year. That saving does not go into a crisis fund. It in fact goes directly into funding the AI build out. They did not fire 8,000 people because they could not afford them. They fired 8,000 people to pay for the machine that will do more work than those 8,000 employees can. That is a completely different equation from anything the workforce has seen before. Now, here's why this matters beyond Meta. You see, every CFO at every large organization is watching Meta's quarterly reports and running the same math quickly in their own spreadsheets. The question is no longer, are we struggling? The question is, what is the cost of our human headcount versus what AI can deliver? And at what point does the swap make financial sense? If you are waiting for your company to start struggling before you take this seriously, you are already behind. The cuts are not coming because the company is losing. The cuts are coming because the company is winning and they want to win even more. That is the profitable company trap, the most dangerous blind spot in the workforce today. So here's the counter argument and why it is the most dangerous thing that you could believe right now. Now, before I go further, I need to address a headline that looked like good news for workers just this last week. Because if you walk away thinking what most people think, you are going to make a costly mistake. Here is the headline. Uber burnt through its entire 2026 AI budget in 4 months. Microsoft canceled most of its internal AI coding licenses. AI is too expensive. Maybe jobs are safe after all. I need you to hear me carefully. This is the most dangerous conclusion that you could draw from that story. Here are the actual Uber numbers. I have come to think of things this way, and you should do the same. Always follow the data because the data is what tells the truth. When Uber deployed AI coding tools in December 2025, 32% of their engineers were using it. By April 2026, that number was 84%. 95% of Uber's engineers now use AI tools every single month. And 70% of all committed code at Uber is now being written by AI. 70% is being written by AI at one of the largest technology companies in the world. So when Uber's CTO says they burn through their budget, what does that actually mean? It means the technology worked so well, so fast, that adoption exploded beyond what they had budgeted for. That is not a failure story. That is the most successful technology rollout in Uber's engineering history. The problem is not that AI does not work. The problem is that AI is working too well. Now, ask the obvious follow-up question. If 70% of Uber's code is already written by AI, how many junior developers do they hire next year? The budget tool is a one-time planning problem. The headcount reduction that follows is a permanent one. As for Microsoft, yes, they canceled Claude Code licenses in one division. You know what they did not do? They did not hire back engineers to replace the AI. They did not reverse direction. Instead, they changed the vendor strategy. Those are completely different things. When a technology proves itself valuable, but the pricing model is unsustainable, companies do not abandon it. Instead, they cap it. They negotiate, find cheaper alternatives, and wait for the cost curve to fall, which it will, because it always does. The PC was too expensive in 1985. The internet was too costly back in 1997. Cloud computing was too expensive for enterprise back in 2009. Anybody remember when ATMs first came out? When credit cards hit or credit card usage online? Everyone used those cost arguments to predict the technology would not change the world, but they were extremely wrong. All of those things that I mentioned just now, the PC, the internet, cloud-based services, ATMs, credit cards, we're using it all today. Once upon a time, we may have said that they were too expensive, but the prices dropped. Microsoft is looking for how they can cut these costs down so that they can implement it. If that was not the case, they would have rehired engineers, which they didn't. And Goldman Sachs just published a report saying that token consumption will increase 24 times by 2030. They are not predicting less AI. They are predicting exponentially more AI as costs fall and deployment scales. The Uber story is not evidence that AI is too expensive to replace workers. It is evident that AI adoption is moving so fast that finance departments cannot plan for it. Those are opposite conclusions. One last thing to prove my point. If AI was so expensive, why did Uber, which had claimed a week earlier that AI was too expensive, just fire 23% of its HR department yesterday, June 3rd, 2026. The firers just got fired. A lot of my HR friends are going to hate me for what I just said. Do not use a cost story to build a comfort story. That is not what the data is saying. The billion-dollar reversal. What the people building AI say in public and do in private. Now, let me deal with comfort story number 2. The statements from Sam Altman, Jensen Huang, and Dario Mode. You may have seen the headlines. Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, went on record in May 2026 saying he was delighted to be wrong about AI's impact on jobs. No job apocalypse. He does not think the AI-driven unemployment people feared will actually happen. Dario Mode, the CEO of Anthropic, who previously said AI could eliminate 50% of white-collar jobs, is now saying AI is not a destroyer of jobs, but a multiplier of output. And then Jensen Huang has been saying for over a year, you are not going to lose your job to an AI. You are going to lose your job to someone who knows how to use AI. Let me tell you what I actually think, because you deserve a straightforward answer. When it comes to Sam Altman, in 2023, in an interview with The Atlantic, he said, and I'm quoting here, jobs are definitely going to go away. Full stop. Those were his words. 2023. Jobs are definitely going away. Now, in 2026, he says he's delighted to be wrong. Now, here's the detail. Fortune magazine reported that I want every single one of you listening to burn into your memory. Altman made that reversal, that sudden discovery that he had been wrong all along. 4 days. 4 days after OpenAI filed their paperwork for $1 trillion IPO. Read between the lines. If you are taking a company public at an 850 billion US dollar valuation, last thing you can do or afford is for regulatory bodies, petition unions, and the public to connect your IPO with mass unemployment. You cannot ring the bell at the stock exchange while millions of people are linking your product to the worst job market of their lives. So you tell a different story and you time it carefully. This is corporate spin at its best. Say something and do something else. You see, CEOs are trained for this. Trust me, we at HRs were the ones who arranged such trainings. Now let's go to Dario Mode. Now, Dario is doing the same thing. You see, Anthropic is valued at around 380 billion US dollars and is reportedly preparing its own IPO for late 2026. The same man who wrote a 20,000-word essay about AI causing unusually painful disruptions to employment is now talking about productivity multipliers. That essay did not disappear. The words did not change. However, the IPO timetable did. I do not think either of them is lying the way the politicians lie. I think they're doing something more sophisticated. They're choosing which part of the truth to emphasize on, depending on who is in the room and what is at stake financially. But you should know that is what you are hearing when you see these. Now let's go on to Jensen Huang. This is a different case and I want to treat it differently. Jensen sells chips. NVIDIA makes GPUs that power every AI system on this planet. His financial interest is in every company deploying as much AI as possible so that they buy more hardware. When he says you will not lose your job to AI, he is making the case for AI adoption, not against job disruptions. But here is what I want you to notice. His statement is not actually reassuring if you think it true. If you lose your job to someone who uses AI better than you do, you still lose your job. The mechanism is different. The outcome is still the same. Jensen's message is actually the most honest of the three, and it is 100% aligned with what I have been telling you on this podcast. The dividing line is not human versus AI. It is people who learn to work with AI versus people who do not. He just says it in a way that sounds less threatening while selling 50,000 US dollar graphic units to the companies automating your function. So here's my verdict. When Altman and Amode tell you there is no job apocalypse, look at what their products are doing right now. Anthropic's Claude is running inside Goldman Sachs, handling trade accounting and reconciliation today. Open AI agents are deploying in enterprise customers services and legal document reviews right now. Watch what technology does, not what the CEO says 4 days after filing for an IPO. Jensen says you will not lose your job to AI. Hear the full sentence. You will lose it to someone who uses AI. That is not comfort. That is a call to action. Part 2. The Cloudflare formula. How to read the signal at your own organizations. So let's talk about why I made this podcast episode. How can you identify today if you could lose your job? I want to give you something specific, a way to read what is actually happening at your organization before anyone announces anything. I'm calling it the Cloudflare formula. Why the Cloudflare formula? Let me explain. In May 2026, Cloudflare cut over 1,100 jobs, which was about 20% of their entire workforce. But here is the detail most of the coverage missed. In the 3 months before those cuts happened, Cloudflare internal AI usage had increased by more than 600%. 600% in a single quarter. The sequence is not a coincidence. It is a formula. When a company aggressively rolls out AI tools and adoption rises fast, two things happen. First, productivity per employee goes up. Second, the productivity data gets captured. Finance can now see with numbers that the same volume of work is being delivered with dramatically less human effort. The question then shifts from should we invest in AI to how many fewer people do we need now? So here's what I want you to watch at your organization. Don't listen to the official announcements. Remember, CEOs are smooth operators. They know how to sugarcoat the actual reality. That is their job. It is to ensure that the company operations move smoothly. And it is their job to say whatever they have to in order to make sure things move smoothly. They will never tell you the truth in advance because that becomes a PR and HR nightmare. Watch the behavior. Watch whether your company is rolling out AI tools and measure the adoption. Watch whether your team is being asked to use AI-assisted platforms for work you used to do manually. Watch whether metrics are coming up in department reviews in ways that were not done 6 months ago. In almost every case, the headcount reduction follows the adoption curve with a lag of 1 to 2 quarters. The company needs time to capture the data, to build the business case, and also to run it past the board. You are not going to get a warning memo. You are going to see the signals in the behavior. Watch the behavior. If AI adoption in your organization has gone up significantly in the last 2 quarters and the efficiency conversations are getting louder, you are in that lag window. Use it. That is your runway. Once it is gone, it's gone. You won't have a recovery and your job will be on the line. Part 3. The entry-level collapse. Why mid-career people are making a fatal mistake. Here is a number that has not gotten the attention it deserves. Entry-level jobs in the United States have fallen 35% in the last 18 months. That's not a small amount, 35%. That is a structural collapse, not an economic fluctuation. If you are 35 years old, 42 or 52, your first instinct might be to think that this is not your problem. You have experience, you have relationships and institutional knowledge. You are not competing for entry-level jobs anymore. You see, that is the fatal mistake. And here is why. Entry-level roles are the input mechanism for the entire professional pipeline. A junior analyst spends 3 years learning the organization, building relationships, developing skills, and of course, getting promoted to a mid-level position. When that mid-level person that has to move up, so a new junior gets hired to fill the gap, the whole system moves upwards together. Now, remove the junior analyst, not at one company, but at thousands of companies simultaneously. The entire bottom of the pipeline is gone. What happens next? Mid-level roles stop being filled because no one is coming up the ladder. Senior roles start consolidating because there are fewer mid-level people to manage. The whole pyramid gets compressed because age 22 to 25 in AI exposed roles have already seen a 16% employment drop compared to peers in less exposed roles. Big tech entry level hiring is down roughly 50% from pre-pandemic levels. I have watched graduating classes boo speakers at their own convocation ceremonies because they cannot find jobs in the fields they studied 4 years to enter. The entry level collapse is not a different story from your story. It is an earlier chapter of the same story. And let me say one more thing that nobody is saying out loud. I'm sure you have heard of machine learning. The corrections you make to AI outputs today, it's learning them. It is recognizing patterns. Give it a year or two and it will close that gap. I had to give a termination letter to this lady from a prominent technology company. She had 18 years of service, top performance rating every single year, completely irreplaceable in the eyes of her manager. However, what she did not know, what her manager did not even know until a week before, was that a team at head office had spent 4 months running an analysis of which the finance function could be centralized, automated, or eliminated. She was not in that room. Her manager was not in that room. Her 18 years of excellent work was not a factor in this whole analysis, by the way. The analysis was about the function and the cost. It was not about people, and that is the world that has now accelerated out of control. The question is no longer whether individual performance is good. It is whether your function still needs to exist in its current form, at its current cost, decided in rooms you're not in by people who have never even met you, who have never read your performance reviews. The only antidote is to make yourself visible in that conversation before the analysis run, not after the announcement. This needs to be done before. Those who wait to react have already lost their initiative. This whole episode is about making sure you are the one in the room, not the one being discussed. Part 4, the Irreplaceability Test. 3 questions could tell you the truth. This is important. I want to give you a new framework, something that goes deeper than anything I've shared with you before. I call this the Irreplaceability Test. 3 questions. Answer them honestly, and you will know more about your actual job security than any performance review. Question number 1. Can the output of your role be described in a workflow? Not your value, not your experience, the output, the actual thing that leaves your desk. Can it be broken into a series of if-then steps? If this data comes in, run this analysis. If this request arrives, apply this criteria. If this situation occurs, follow this process. If the answer to what I just asked is yes, a significant proportion of that output is automatable. That is not an opinion. That is the definition of what AI agents do well. They follow complex multi-step workflows faster and more consistently than any human being alive. The question is not whether you can do that workflow. You can. The question is whether you are worth more than that workflow. Question number 2. Is there a version of your role that no AI can inhibit? Not better than you at a specific task. I am asking you about a version of your role, a set of responsibilities that require you to be in the room, to have the relationship, to carry the context, to make the call, to take the accountability. Version the organization cannot run on AI because someone has to own the judgment and carry the risk. If you cannot describe that version, you are in danger. If you can describe it but are not doing it yet, move towards it now. If you are already there, make sure the people making decisions can see it happen, because irreplaceable work is often invisible. The analyst who runs the report is visible. The person who sits in the room and tells the senior leadership, that the report conclusion is wrong and who is trusted enough to be heard. Harder to see on a spreadsheet, but they are the ones who will survive this chaos. Question number 3. If your organization automated 60% of what you do, is the remaining 40% enough to justify your cost? This is a question that every CFO will ask. I am asking you to ask it first before your CEO asks that. In some roles, that 40% is absolutely worth the cost. It is the judgment, the relationships, the creativity, the cross-functional navigation that the organization genuinely cannot function without. In other roles, the remaining 40% is residual work that could be absorbed by another person or function without much difficulty. If your honest answer is closer to the second scenario, you have work to do, not to panic, to reposition yourself. That is what the next section is all about. Section 5. What to actually do. The blueprint upgraded. The 4-pillar blueprint is my backbone and I'm keeping it. But today I'm going to give you new material in each pillar that I have not shared in previous episodes. Pillar 1, the cognitive audit. Now, with a 4th column, do the 3-column exercise, which I've been doing with you guys. So the first one is official job description. Do what you actually do. What a machine could do. If you're not aware of this, please watch episode 8 for the full rundown of the blueprint. But this week, I'm adding a 4th column. What would I have to do differently starting this week to shift my role towards irreplaceability? This is your 4th column. This cannot be done in theory. It has to be done specifically by function, by deliverables, and by relationship. Let me give you an example. If you are a financial analyst and column 3 contains report generation, reconciliation, and variance analysis, and yes, AI is doing all of that right now, then in column 4, you will need to write the following. Then the business review meeting, which you currently just support with slides. Start framing the narrative, not just the numbers. Build relationship with the business leaders so that when the numbers tell confusing story, your phone is the one that they ring. This is a specific behavioral shift. This is not an add more value. It is a change that alters what you are known for inside the organization. Do this and do this fast. Do column 4 for every item in column 3. That gives you a week by week repositioning roadmap. Pillar number 2, pro-grade immersion. This is the skill that is replacing prompting. So what you need to do is you need to invest in a frontier AI model and use it daily. That still stands. But the skill set has moved a bit. Prompting is becoming table stakes. The new valuable skill is understanding how agents are designed and how to deploy them on real workflows. I'm not asking you to become a developer. I am asking you to understand what it means when someone says, we are deploying an agent to handle X. What is a tool called? What is a workflow orchestrator? What is the difference between an agent that assists a human and one that replaces the human entirely? Because when your organization starts that conversation, and trust me, it will, and that too probably within the next 12 months, the people who understand the architecture are the ones who get to influence where the human stays in the loop. The people who do not understand it get told where the human used to be. Go on to YouTube this week. Search, what is an AI agent? Explained simply. Spend 3 hours. You do not need to build one. You need to understand one well enough to be useful in the room. Pillar number 3, workflow synthesis. And the warning inside it nobody is talking about. Integrating AI into your daily workflow is not enough on its own. The trap. If your output doubles because of AI, the person running the CFO analysis is going to look at your function and ask whether they need one of you or half of one of you. Productivity gains from AI, only protection if you redirect the liberated time towards irreplaceable work, not more mechanical work done faster. You need to move it towards the judgment, the relationships, the strategy, the context that no AI in the next 5 years will be able to replicate. If you use AI to get faster at your column 3 work and fill the time savings with more column 3 work, you are not protecting your career. You are accelerating the timeline on which you become redundant. Use AI to clear the mechanical, fill the clear time with the irreplaceable. That's what you will need to do. On to pillar number 4, relationships. This is the one specific conversation you have not had yet. Building your network before you need it, that still stands. But I want to tell you about one conversation that matters more than most people realize. The conversation with your immediate manager about AI. Most people have not had it. They are afraid it will signal that they are worried about their job, or they do not know how to frame it, or they don't want to show their manager that they're using AI to get their day-to-day job done, or they're waiting for someone else to raise it first. That is a mistake. Here's how to have that conversation. Go to your manager and say, I want to be one of the people who help us think about where AI fits into our team. I have been learning about it independently, and I think there is an opportunity for us to do this better than other teams. Can we carve out some time to work through it together? That sentence does 3 things. It signals that you're a learner willing to build the new way, not a knower protecting the old one. It puts you in the conversation about where the human stays in the loop. Lastly, it creates a visible record of your initiative before any restructuring discussions start. That conversation is worth more than 100 LinkedIn posts. Go have it today. Here's the closing. Let me speak directly to the functions most exposed by everything that I have described today. Marketing, content development, communications. The production side of your role is going. Brief writing, copy generation, performance reporting, A/B testing, analysis. That is not your future. Your future is the strategic decision making. What does this brand need to stand for? Why is this campaign not landing enough, even though the metrics looks good? What does the customer actually feel in a way that AI, which has never felt anything, cannot generate? Move towards that. Start now in your current role without waiting for permission. Next, finance operations. Goldman Sachs is running AI agents on transaction reconciliation, trade accounting, and client onboarding. And they're doing it right now. Not as a pilot. The finance role that survives is not the one that runs the numbers. It is the one that challenges the numbers. The person who looks at the AI generated forecast and says, I know the market, and these numbers do not make sense. These assumptions are wrong. And here is why. You need to be that person in your next meeting. HR. I spent nearly 3 decades in this function. I love it. So I will be direct. The operational spine of HR is gone. There is no more HR operations. Resume screening, compliance documentation, exit interviews, onboarding workflows. All of this is being automated at companies paying attention. Take a look at Uber's HR. They didn't see it coming. The HR role that survives does what no algorithm can do. The conversations with the managers who is about to lose their team and needs someone to help them lead with humanity. The investigations that require reading a room, a pattern, a person in a way that has nothing to do with data. The cultural diagnosis that requires years of institutional knowledge. Go be that HR professional right now. Back in the early 2000s, we used to call it business HR. Become more in line with the business goals and their targets. Speak their language and you will survive. Customer service, procurement, logistics, operations. I'm going to be direct. The timeline on your function is shorter than most, not because you're not skilled, but because your work is the most rule-based, sequential, and clearly describable as a workflow of any function in a large organization. That is exactly what agentic AI devours first. Your move is not to get better at the current job. Your move is to get adjacent to the AI deployment of it. Go to whoever in your organization is thinking about automating what you do and offer to help design it. The person who helps build the agent that partially replaces their own function has a job long after that function is automated, because the agent needs a human who understands the edge cases, the escalations, the things that fall outside the workflow. Position yourself now. Here is what I want you to walk away with today. Your company doing well is not your protection. Meta proved that this month. The Cloudflare formula tells you the signal to watch at your own organization. AI adoption going up fast means headcount reduction is usually 1 to 2 quarters behind it. The entry-level collapse is not a young person's problem anymore. It is an earlier chapter of your story. If your organization automated 60% of what you do, is the remaining 40% enough to justify your cost? This is the question your CFO is already running. Before he asks it, you need to do it yourself. Under Cognitive Audit, with all 4 columns, which I've just introduced, have the AI conversation with your manager before someone else does. Understand what an AI agent is well enough to be in the room when the decision gets made, and use the time AI saves you to do the work that AI cannot do. One action this week, just one. Find one recurring task on your calendar that is entirely mechanical and hand it over to AI. Give it to that AI tool completely. Use the time you get back to show up somewhere as the human in the room. Do that this week. Then again the week after. That is how the repositioning starts. If you want to talk through what this looks like specifically for your role and industry, I do a free 15 to 30-minute career audit at pricesparrows.com. Just an honest assessment of where you stand today and what you need to do next. If this episode landed with you, send it to one person who needs to hear it. Not the person who already gets it, the person who is at a successful company, performing well, feeling quite safe, and has not run the irreplaceability test yet. So that's the end. I'm Bryce Barrows, your future readiness architect. Remember, the future belongs to those who are ready. Go be unstoppable. Thank you.